Sales next.
Yes, I am Dr.Jay Barnett, former pro athlete turned marriage and family therapist, the author of the Just Heal Grow book, which has toured 30 cities, helping Black and Brown men be open and be vulnerable about their mental health challenges and also provide adequate resources for them. And now work in the space of healthcare, deconstructing old systems and policies to better provide systems and policies that will give adequate care, sorry, tongue tie, to Black and Brown students. And so we'll look to hear from Dr. Quick.
Good morning, everyone. Dr. Quick here from New Jersey. Professionally, on a day-to-day basis, I serve as the Assistant Secretary for Higher Education here in the state of New Jersey. I've been in higher education for the last 20 years, working in the areas of student affairs and diversity, equity, and inclusion. Um, Most recently, I started my own nonprofit called Leading Young Women, which is an organization geared towards working with young girls of color, primarily focusing on girls within the grades of 6th to 12th grade, focusing on female empowerment, as we're here today, mental health, social justice, teaching them about what it means to be a citizen, both globally as well as locally within their communities, doing service, and focusing on the aspect of mentoring, not only them being mentors to younger students, but also them being mentored themselves. It's a pleasure to be here with you. As we know, mental health is affecting all of our youth, but it's doing a great disservice to our young girls, with suicide rates on the rise amongst Black and Brown girls right now. So it's a pleasure to be here and look forward to this conversation.
Amy,
Oh,
Nick,
and I'll go to Ronaldo.
thank you so much. Appreciate everybody being here. My name is Ronaldo De Silva, CEO of Sankofa Legacy Partners. We're an organization that works with the K 12 space as well as higher education. And we pretty much provide a platform to help coach, mentor, also provide mental health as well as financial wellness education and services to low income, middle income kids of color, really trying to help them from a very holistic perspective as they navigate their educational journey. So it's a pleasure to be here and be part of this conversation. Thank you so much. I'll turn over to Amy.
Morning, everyone. Wow, I am just humbled to be in such incredible company. Thank you, Ronaldo, for asking me to join the conversation. I'm Amy Cubbage. I've been in the technology space for the last 25 years of my career. The last 10 has focused in nonprofit and education. And during the course of that time, not only has mental health been a central focus for my own journey, but also in building teams and creating access and opportunity for folks from typically underrepresented, underestimated groups, and that spans a full spectrum of folks, including Black and Brown communities, LGBTQ plus. Just making sure we are thinking holistically about creating spaces of inclusion at the intersection of technology and the day-to-day life that we're all trying to maneuver through. I also am a mom of three boys, 2 teenagers, 1 pre-teenager, and a lot of that, mental health journey is around making sure they are able to go into the world thinking about their health holistically.
So we've got Nick.
All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Nick Arion, serving as president of the Sankofa Legacy Partners. Full-time day-to-day basis, I serve as principal of strategic partnerships for our DEI space at the American Cancer Society. I also serve as faculty member at Duke University here in Durham, North Carolina. I'm really honored to be here with you all. My background is in higher education and K through 12 administration as well, alongside being a community leader with several organizations and being a pastor. As you know, being a pastor of a Black church really means you're also leading that community in which you're serving. And so I've had a great privilege and pleasure to serve as pastor of some great people and a great community, and also serve some great students to make sure that they graduate and get all the things that they need in order to be successful in life, in school, academically, socially, whatever that may be. And so I'm grateful for this conversation and look forward to what takes place today. And I'll pass it over to JDP.
Hi, everybody. My name is John D. Palm, known as JDP to my friends. I am the Chief Customer Success Officer and CIO of Sankofa. I have a long history in the technology arena and am a ICF certified coach. I coach specifically underestimated people from under-resourced zip codes to find acceptance, entry, belonging, success, growth, and permanence in the careers of their choosing. And I'm so thrilled to be here today. So, Dr. Barnett, back to you.
So again, we're all here because Ronaldo felt that we can add some adequate information and that this conversation would be very advantageous to not only us, but to the listeners. As a therapist and as someone who was able to practice during the pandemic, and we saw an increase in every element of life that you could think about. There was an increase in domestic violence, unfortunately. There was an increase in crime. There was an increase in alcohol and substance abuse. There was just an increase in influx in so many different elements of life that I don't think that we had giving attention to because we were often probably busy. And then we had buffers in life, but the pandemic challenged each of us to sort of sit still. But then we saw this increase as the students have transitioned out of the pandemic and trying to navigate back into their social spaces in school. And we're seeing this increase, as Dr. Quick spoke about, with Black and brown girls and suicide. I grew up in the South. Suicide was a considered white thing. And then I myself, being a two-time suicide survivor after transitioning out of the NFL, I speak a lot about this across the country. But the one thing that we have not seen is enough conversation on what is the solution, or even if there is a solution. So I would really love to kind of, open up this question and this discussion with what is the solution? We know that there's a growing issue, a growing epidemic, and maybe Dr. Quick, you can start us off, and then we can, kind of go from there, and everyone kind of share. We have counselors, we have therapists, but then there's not enough of them. Even if everyone who graduated today, there were clinicians, counselors, LBC, psychiatrists, and psychologists, they wouldn't be ready to practice until about 2028, realistically. And not only just within the outer hours, but just even, I think there is some lived experience that really helps to add weight to what we do from the clinical space. So Dr. Quick, in your juncture and where you have served, what do you see the solution being, or if we're still in the process of discovering what that looks like?
I think we're still in the process of discovering what that looks like, but only from the perspective of thinking how we can start the process at a younger age, right? I think a lot of times we wait until our students are getting to high school or getting to college, but it's what practices are we beginning to infuse into our communities and our homes at a younger age, where students are learning about mental health and learning about self-care as a part of their daily life in comparison to a reactive approach to something that may be going on. When we talk about personal experiences, one of the reasons why I started my nonprofit organization is because, as Amy mentioned, I have a daughter. I have a 17-year-old daughter who was struggling with self-harm. And I have a lot of girlfriends who also have daughters, and they tend to be younger. And I tell people all the time, those years between 11 and 13 for young girls, for those of us that are Greek, I say that's hell years for us, because the young ladies are literally trying to find their identities within themselves. They're comparing themselves to their peers, and then they're a lot of times trying to live up to any standards that we may have and impart on them as parents. They don't know how to process their feelings just yet. They don't know what it means to go from one feeling to the other in the midst of a juncture. And even us as parents, I had to learn that my daughter wasn't cutting herself because she was looking to commit suicide. She was harming herself because she was looking for a physical pain that represented the pain that she was feeling inside, right? But if we began some of these conversations and gave our students the opportunity to have outlets from a younger age in which they're talking about their feelings, they're able to see real live and center how they can go from hot or cold, or how they're going from sadness to anger, to what it means to be empathetic towards a peer in their classroom, and making it real life examples for them when they're actually in those moments. I think it wouldn't make it such a drastic transition for them as they're evolving and as they're having that developmental piece. Another thing that comes to mind is we often wait, and Jay, you talked about counselors in 2028. How are we beginning to utilize students who are currently in their master's degree programs who need real life experience? Right?
Yeah.
Why do we have to wait until they get those degrees when you have people who need field work hours? How are we partnering with local school districts who are in need, who higher education institutions who are in need of these services, when you have these people who need the field work hours, are required to have a supervisor? Why not give them those experiences as long as they're being supervised to be able to address the needs that we actually have? Those are two major things that come to mind. It's definitely starting at a younger age, and then I would say utilizing those younger adults who are looking to go into these fields who can get real life experiences.
Thank you, Dr. Quick. You said so much, and I love how you poignantly spoke about your daughter not trying to take her life, but she was exuding a reflection of what she was feeling internally, and that it came through an external, sort of practice, if you will. And I think many times we don't have individuals that can clearly articulate what a teen is actually feeling in real time. And so I think that is so profound that you are able to articulate that, and that parents who are watching this would have some understanding, because oftentimes they think when they see their child is self-harm, my child is trying to take their life. And many times it is sort of a mirror to what is happening on the inside. And so thank you for sharing that. And I absolutely agree. I have mentioned that to the Health and Human Services. I've mentioned that to SAMHSA. I've mentioned it to everyone. We have got to put these students to work in the field, to give those, because the counselors that they have are experiencing burnout at a great level. And so thank you for sharing that. I want to go to you, Nick. Nick, you've been a pastor, and study shows 91.4% of individuals that are in the church would rather go to church than to seek mental health professionals or to seek mental health counseling. With you being a leader and a shepherd of a flock, have you made the transition to begin implementing or inserting messages, or even creating space for the conversation and dialogue of mental health conversations to take place in your ministry?
Absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up. We live in a space, especially I pastor in the South, and if you're familiar with the South, right, and the Black church tradition, everything really runs through the pastor, right? We're going to pray about this, we're going to pray about that. And don't get me wrong, if I could say this on this space, I believe in the power of prayer, right? But, there's something else that goes with it, not doubting that God can work and not doubting that prayer still works. But there's also some things that we have to do as humans, right? That goes alongside with prayer. Faith without works is dead, right? And so oftentimes when I was teaching Bible study and I was having Sunday sermons or I was having conversation with folks, we would pray, we would do all those things. I would talk about the importance of taking care of yourself, the importance of taking care of your body and things like that. But I'll also tell them like it's okay to go to church and have a therapist, right? Those two
Yeah.
things ought not be divorced, right? As a pastor, because of the many things that I hold and carry, that I love my members, I love my flock, I love my people, right? Or the people that I serve, I should say. But I carry a certain weight of the things that they bring with me or bring to me, and that's okay. That's what I'm called to do. That's my purpose, right? But it's important for me as the leader that I seek therapy, right, to process all that because along with that, I have things going on in my personal life, right? Uh, Holding a lot of things from being an administrator, a leader, all those things that it's important that I have time to process. And I think it's important that my flock and the people that I serve see that I go seek that support as well so that they can see like, okay, I can pray and have a therapist. I can go to church and have a therapist. I could talk to the pastor and have a therapist. And I oftentimes have to tell members, right, that, okay, yes, we can pray together. We can talk about all these things, but it's important to know that I am not a therapist, right? I'm not a licensed therapist, right? And so there are certain things that we could talk about, we could pray, and I will always keep those things right here close to the chest. I will never share what you share with me, right? Unless it's a certain thing, of course. But I tell them like it's important that you seek the support that you need, whatever that is. And I'm happy to refer you to someone. I'm grateful to work at a great university that has a lot of resources where I can refer my students to and even parishioners as well. But that's so important. There's so many passages in the Bible that even talks about mental health that we oftentimes skip over, right? Or we don't really get to the real meat of the message. And that's often sometimes the text that I deal with, right? To show the importance of prayer and seeking the support that you need because this is a journey, right? And we need to pray, we need to fast, we need to do all those things. We need to go to church, we need to talk to our pastors, we need to talk to our members. But we also need to seek some professional support to go alongside with that, right? And so that's something that I've stressed in my teachings. That's something I've stressed in my preachings, in my one-on-one sessions, that there's another route that we can take. And we're not divorcing once again or lessening the power of prayer or the power of going to church, but also knowing that there are other avenues to get the support that we need. And sometimes you need to seek professional help because I know for sure I do because I have to. I hope that answers your question.
No, no, not only did you answer that question, but one thing that I love about pastors, my father's a pastor, has been pastoring 30 years, is the deliberate context that you provide, and I was so glad that you provided that context that you are not a counselor. And I think so many times people go to the pastor for everything and not realizing that he himself is a person. When you look at studies shows 15,000 pastors leave ministry every month. And I don't think they're leaving God. They're leaving the weight from the burden of the people. And that pastors and lay leaders don't have individuals that are in place to stand in the gap, mental health counselors, professionals, or even having, advocates to say, we are not counselors, but we can get you to help, get you to some individuals that can provide the help. Because, back in the days, the church was the community resource.
Absolutely.
You went to the church for everything. And I think that it's time for us to begin building that community to where we're not going to the pastor, but the church does have resources for us to reach a source that can possibly help us. And so I commend you on that, brother, for, creating that space with your church, but also that level of transparency with your members as well, that you too need to be seeing somebody because after you have giving and poured out, you definitely need a space to debrief and so I'm so happy to hear that you have that space. I want to take a turn and go to you, Ronaldo. You made a pivot in your career and you have sort of changed course, moving into tech, now moving into what I would call personal development, emotional wellness in the space of developing young people and developing young people from K through 12 and higher education. What was the pivotal moment for you to make that change, to create Sankofa and to develop programs that will help develop young teens?
Wow. That's a pretty heavy question, Jay, and I appreciate it. It's really no simple answer to that. The easiest way I can answer that question is what Sankofa does is loosely based on all of the challenges that I've had, the learnings that I've had throughout the course of my life. I moved to this country when I was 4 from the Caribbean. Grew up in the inner city, pretty tough upbringing, not unlike many others, um, and experienced everything that comes along with it. My educational journey was very, very non traditional. There were a lot of gaps, a lot of crevices throughout the entire process. And throughout all that, I struggled mightily with mental health challenges, depression primarily, anxiety primarily, and in a really, really major way. You were transparent about, the fact that you had two failed suicide attempts in your life. I didn't go that far, but I've been in those dark places a number of times throughout the course of my life, especially early back as my college years. There were a lot of things I was struggling in silence, a lot of things I never opened up to anyone about. Felt that it was just me going through it, and struggled in silence. And as a result of that, it had a very, very adverse impact on my life. Sankofa was designed to really be the cheat code to help young men, young women, as early on as fourth grade, all the way through their first career, to really understand that what they're going through, they're not alone in. To help them to have a space where they could actually talk about it, because what sharing right now is something that probably 6, 8 months ago I would not have been able to share openly. I had anxiety coming onto this recording to share because I knew that I would probably start opening up as this conversation went along. I'm doing that right now. But I would not have been this open had I not sought help and started seeing a counselor. You were a major help in that journey for me, and I appreciate you for it. But I need these young men and young women to understand that they are not alone, to have a space to actually have that conversation. Because as you get out of that quiet, dark, lonely place and start to actually get it out and talk about it and realize that you're not alone, then the weight starts to get lifted and that becomes a lot more normal. And that's how it was for me. And that's the space I'm trying to create, along with the mentoring, along with the coaching, which is super important. It's the core of what we do. I believe that financial wellness aspects, the mental health aspect are hugely important, huge components to that well-being and success of that young man and that young woman. And I appreciate you leading that part of our organization. So that's a super high level on why I decided to do this. And Amy, also, you've been a tremendous part of that journey for me as well, because we just came through a situation um, recently that was a major factor in all of this and leading me to where I sit today with creating Sankofa. And you, along with JDP, Kenan, and Karen, weren't here today, but they were a major factor in that journey. Steve, he talked about there being three buckets: the personal bucket, the family bucket, the work bucket, and you have to be pouring into equally all of those buckets. And for me, I found myself not doing that, and the self bucket was empty always. And I'm learning that I've got to pour into that bucket as well. So I want to share all of those lessons. I want us to create this space to share those lessons with young men and young women in college. But as Dr. Quick pointed out, we got to go back further than that. We got to start younger. We got to start injecting this into that K-12 space and help them. So once they get to that collegiate level, or if they choose not to go to college, go to a trade, they still need that, and so they can become a more whole human. So that's I guess my long-winded way of answering your question.
No, I thought that was beautifully articulated, Ronaldo. Thank you for your transparency. Thank you for your commitment to this mission. I truly believe that the educational system has been building machines and not building people. We've been building kids to regurgitate, not to be whole humans. You know, I was a pro athlete, and I often tell parents, coaches don't develop men, they develop talent. So if you're hoping that a young man is going to be developed, you're going to be sadly mistaken. And this is why you see the challenges with athletes who have a difficulty, not just in transition, but many of them don't even know how to be a human being, because much of our life is determined by performance, and we don't know how to be. And so this is why I think what you're doing with Sankofa and your mission, and to not only just think about them at a higher level, but to think about them at a level as they are developing their thoughts, their emotions in their formative years. Because I think if we catch these kids in their formative years, we really can equip them with the tools on how do you manage you. That's mental health. It's managing you. And if you learn how to manage you, you have an understanding of how to navigate the different ebbs and flows of life, because life is going to happen. And as Dr. Quick was speaking about, I think what I see with these teens today is, I don't, I say this very confidently. I'm an 80s baby. So we grew up in the 80s where we didn't know what we felt, but we were better at managing ourselves. This generation know what they feel, but they don't know how to manage it. So when they feel something, it is violent. I have had to sit with many parents, and as I've had a student that I work with closely who took her life during the pandemic because she said in her note, it's never going to end. And that is their mindset. They feel like when trouble happens and when things happen, it is the end, and not knowing that there is another side to it. Which is why what you're doing, Ronaldo, is so needed, brother. And as I've shared with you, when I send you statistics, that is to encourage you that the work is plentiful, the labors are few. So you definitely have a unique niche for this space, which leads me to Amy. You have a daughter, and you're also raising a daughter in this generation.
Boys.
You
Boys.
and boys. Yeah.
No,
Oh, you have
boys.
boys.
I have
Oh, all
three
boys.
boys. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, three boys.
Dr. Barnett, I'm a girl dad. I got 3 girls.
Oh, wow.
I got,
God
it's the
bless you,
triple
brother.
threat.
But I was a
Yeah,
teenage girl. You had
yeah.
to step up.
So with raising, that's Dr. Quick with the daughter. Uh, so with raising boys, what has been some of the challenge on helping them understand? Because we don't have the language as young boys, which makes it difficult for us to talk as men. So in what way are you helping your boys understand the importance of what they feel and their emotions?
Wow. Okay. I just got chills at that question because, and Ronaldo and JDP have probably heard me say this, but one of my most important jobs as a mother is to hopefully help raise men into this world who know how to move through the world with their emotions in ways that are healthy for themselves and for those around them. And you touch on language. Language is a huge part of it. Understanding and creating the space for moving through emotions, having them, but being able to talk about them and have them in ways that are really healthy with all three of my boys. And my oldest, we actually, for the first time, he struggled with anxiety early in first and second grade and lots of things that aren't oriented towards taking care of boys at that stage of education, and had him in therapy. And we started very early thinking about it as, what are the tools in your toolbox what's in your toolbox to use when you're working through a situation, when you're feeling something where you're angry about something. What are the tools in your emotional well-being toolbox that you can pull out and use? Maybe it's taking a step back, maybe it's a breathing exercise, maybe it's doing artwork to draw through what is it, but creating sort of at least the space that everyone has emotion, everyone has to move through those things. And the way that we help ensure that we are healthy is by ensuring that we are able to manage and care and have compassion for ourselves through those moments. The other sort of thing that I've observed being a mom of boys is that that self narrative can be as damaging. I'm bad, I'm this. At that age, those things are absolutes, as opposed to I made a bad choice, or I made a choice that resulted in something that didn't feel good, that made me angry. So how do you equip them to move through those things? And yeah, it's a work in progress. And I learned from them, Dr. Quick, you talked about starting early, and I could not agree more. That teaching some of those early things, even in like kindergarten, preschool, of like, how do you express it? I don't feel like it's ever too early to start to teach some of those foundational skills so that you start to have the resilience to move through the ups and downs that are inevitable in life. So I think that it is just being really intentional, and also being caring and compassionate with ourselves as parents, because it's easy to feel like, oh, I got it wrong, or I lost my cool. And there's so much power, I think, in leading by example and saying, coming back and saying, I let my emotions do this, and I need to apologize because I wasn't proud of the way, I didn't feel good about the way I engaged in that. And I want to make sure that I lead by example in those moments with my kids as well. So I have a long, Ronaldo knows this, a long history of mental illness in my family. My mother had bipolar disorder. I had suicidal ideation at 13. And so I know that space, and also one of my kids had a mental health crisis during COVID, as so many kids did. And I think that it wasn't even necessarily about wanting to self-harm, to your point, Dr. Cricket, which is, I don't see an end. It's always going to feel this way. So how do we support ourselves, our kids, our communities in those moments of darkness? And Ronaldo, to your point, have folks know they're not alone.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful, Amy. And your boys are blessed to have a mother like you, to be
I'm
aware.
blessed.
And as you said, I have 3 nieces and 2 nephews, and I hug my nephews and kiss them on their forehead. They look forward to it. And they know their uncle is all the things. And but the one thing that I have seen that it does is that it's the most calming thing for them, and hugging them. And study shows that boys need just as many hugs as girls when they are being raised. And most of us, as men today, if we're honest, the reason we struggle in uh, relationships, romantic relationships, is because interpersonally, we don't really know how to connect internally. So what you're doing is allowing your boys to develop a healthy interpersonal relationship with themselves, which now is projected and exhibited, in their other relationships. Because if I could identify with what I'm feeling, I think there's a smoother path to you create that for someone else to exercise and express how they're feeling. And I often hear, when I'm doing couple counsel, is he doesn't really know how to, open up to me, and when I'm sharing to me, he's just sitting there, and many times he's sitting there because he doesn't know what to say. Going back to the language. So for the mere fact that you're giving your boys language in that season of their lives helps them to be able to express in another season of their lives and manhood. So I think that is so amazing that they have you in that space as a mother. So JDP, I want to close this out with you, and you're doing all the things coaching and helping individuals discover really their purpose inside of their work. I believe, if I'm kind of paraphrasing that, how important is it to couple mental health coaching or therapy, counseling to the work that you're doing? Because I think they have to work hand in hand.
Mm.
Because if you're going to discover a greater version of yourself, I think it's also important that you understand the level that you're at on all levels. So how important is that in your line of work?
Yeah, so there's a line of demarcation between mentoring and coaching and therapy. And there is that gray area where, as a coach or as a mentor, your mentee or your coachee, you have to be aware of what it is they're saying, how they're expressing themselves, the verbal and nonverbal, because those are key indicators of whether you're going to be recommending that they see someone, right? Because as a coach or as a mentor, you have to be cognizant of the fact that unless you're a trained therapist, you have to know where that border is, the border of recommending. So it's crucial that every coach and every mentor have some basic awareness of how to identify yellow and red flags, and also in their back pocket have resources that they can readily make available to the coachee or the mentee so that they get the support that they need on that emotional basis. Because again, mentors look at today and they look at the tactical. Coaches have a longer term view and they kind of take the coachee out and have them sort of look at forward, right? From today forward.
Right.
Therapists, much like this book that was in Oprah Winfrey's book club, right? It's titled "What Happened to You." Look at today back. What got you here? And
Yeah.
so, when you understand where your lane is as a coach and as a mentor, then and again being able to bring those resources to bear, you're better supporting that coach, that mentee or coachee.
Man, beautifully. This has been a great discussion, and I love it that we were able to sort of tap into every element of life. From Nick talking about the importance of mental health in the faith-based arena, Dr. Quick sharing her story of her daughter as a mother and the importance of starting early. Ronaldo, his reason for starting Sankofa and creating space where we are able to teach, we're able to mentor and coach these young people to higher up. And then Amy, representing a parent, and a mom raising boys, because there is a increase in suicide amongst our young males. And I really think that what you're doing, Ronaldo, is really going to uh, eliminate a lot of these premature deaths. And I'm going to go there because these kids are leaving way too soon. These kids are leaving so much of their life behind. And then there are individuals that are left behind, parents, siblings, family members, to sort of carry that pain because in their mind, what could I have done? What could I have said? And JDP, you being able to mirror not only what every coach needs, as you said, in your back pocket, you have a list of resources that you can readily make available to that individual, but also understanding what each part and role that we all represent, whether you're a therapist, a mentor, as a coach, we all play an important role to enhancing the life of individuals holistically. So thank you guys for this great and beautiful progressive conversation today.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much. This was awesome.
Thanks, everyone.